pick up the axe and go to that tree. Why? Because that's the right tool. I mean, what would happen if I picked up a baseball bat and went to that tree and I just swung 5 times? In fact, forget 5, with a baseball bat. What happens if I swung every day 5,000 times with a baseball bat at that tree? The tree's not coming down. Why? Wrong tool. That's why I tell people all the time when they just think that working hard is the key to success. I say, no, working smart is the key to success. Having the right tool, that's working smart. Having an axe instead of a baseball bat, now you're talking.
Hi, I'm Chris Godey. I don't know about you, but I know that I love to absorb content. There's so much free content out there. However, one challenge that I do have is that I often struggle to then take that content and put it into practice. I don't change the habits that I need to based off of the video that I've been inspired by. If that's you, I want you to watch this video, and then I would love for you to comment, and we would love to hear your thoughts below.
It all begins with thinking. For example, I wish I could give you the things to think on. I've got a whole list of things that help you to be successful in your thinking. But let me just, I only have time for a couple of them. But for example, here's my mindset. There's always an answer. You say, John, what do you mean there's always an answer? What I mean is very simple. There's always an answer. I know a lot of people don't have answers, but there's an answer that, they just don't have it yet. Now, I know that to be a fact. In fact, I know that there is not always an answer. I know the second thing is there's usually more than one answer. In other words, there's almost more than one way to almost accomplish anything that's important in life, but there's always an answer. I always live on the other side of yes. Now, what does that do? It allows me to see the possibilities, not the problems so much. Now, let me explain this. Here's the difference. There's a difference between these two questions. I'm going to give them to you, and let's see if immediately you can tell the difference. There's a difference between me asking myself, can I, and asking myself, how can I? That's the gap I'm talking about between successful and unsuccessful people. Unsuccessful people ask the question all the time, can I? Can I? Well, I don't see a way. I don't think so. Can I? I don't know. You see, when I'm asking, can I open the door for excuses. When I ask the question, can I open the door for obstacles and barriers, to get in my way. But the moment I switch to how can I, now I've already settled it that I'm going to do it. I'm no longer in can I land. Now I'm in how can I? I've always said I'm going to get it done. There is an answer. I'm going to find the answer. Now the question is, how am I going to find that? It's there. I'm going to get it. Can you not see the difference? And I promise you, this is the difference in your business between people who succeed. This is you got to have a how can I mindset. If you have a can I mindset, you're done in this work. I'm telling you, it's over because you're going to see too many problems. But remember this, every opportunity has always been disguised as a problem. Opportunities just don't come out in front of you like neon signs in Las Vegas on the strip that says opportunity, opportunity, opportunity. If it was that blatant and that clear, everybody would seize the opportunity. The reason people don't seize the opportunity is because it's almost always disguised in problems and challenges and difficulties. They say, well, God, I don't want to go there. I mean, they're not a how can I person, and so they don't go there, and they don't open the door of problems to find out where the opportunities are. The other day, a guy came to me and said, you know what? I think I lost an opportunity last month. Oh, I said, don't worry about it. I said, somebody found it. Yeah. You see, if you live on that can I world, you let opportunities pass you every day. But it's okay. There are people all around you that are asking, how can I? And they'll pick it up. Failure and success, they go together. Don't separate them. You see, the whole world separates success and failure, and they put failure way over here, and they put success way over here to the right, and basically they said, boy, you want to be successful and you don't want to fail? Hello? What world do they live in? Everybody that succeeds fails. They succeed because in their failing, they learn from their failure. Hello? And failure is a huge learning tool. It's a great asset in your life. You never want to omit it out of your life. You want to realize that it's there to teach you something. It's going to make a difference for you. And it's just absolutely amazing once you put them together. So when you fail, you say, okay, I'm going to learn to fail forward. I read a book a few years ago called Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. The value of failure is learning. I was talking the other day to a CEO, second largest tech company in the world. And he was talking to me about, in their incredible success, all of the difficulties, the challenges, the losses, the failures. And I asked him, I said, well, would you like to go back and do some of those over? We'd like to take that decision that was kind of not a good decision and do it over. That's a question. All of us would like to have do-overs in our life, wouldn't we? We wouldn't like to go back and say, oh, I wish I could have another shot at that. And interesting enough, when I asked him if he would like to go back and do any of them over, he said no. Wow. No? You don't want to do any of them over? He said, no, John. He said, because in my mistakes, failures, my losses, I learned so much. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about my company. I learned a lot about what doesn't work. He said, I am the person I am today because I learned from my failures. In fact, he said, the inner core of who I am, the character, it's all out of the difficult days. He said, if I went back and could do them over, I would have lost the lessons. And if I'd have lost the lessons, I'd have lost the inner core and character I got. And I don't want to trade that. No, I'll take the losses. I'll take the message. You see, he understands failure and success go together. So when people talk about something they failed in, okay, I listen to their story. Okay, let the violin play. When they're done talking about the failure, I only have one question to ask you. We already talked about your failure. Are you done? The question is, what did you learn? If you didn't learn something out of that failure, you're going to mess up again in the same area. But if you learn something from it, now you can improve yourself. And now all of a sudden, you're a different person. Take the steps of failure to go up to success. That's what you do. That's what all successful people do. Don't separate them. I could go on and on about things that you need to think on that separate you from people who don't think correctly. The ability to prioritize your life. Activity is not necessarily accomplishment. I was working on a business degree, and the prof one day taught life-changing principle to me, the Pareto principle. It's called the 20-80 principle. It's all about Pareto and his mindset of how to prioritize things in life. Pareto basically says if you have 10 things to do, categorize them and prioritize them according to importance. So number 1 truly is the most important thing you do. Clear down to number 10 is the least of the 10. And then Pareto makes this incredible truth. He said, if you just do the top 2 things, you don't have to do all 10 if you just did the top 2, but they're the most important 2, you'd get an 80% return on everything you want in your life or in your business. When I was sitting in that classroom as a kid working on my business degree, when that prof taught the Pareto principle, the lights went on and I said, I'm going to study Alfredo Pareto the rest of my life. I'm going to practice Pareto because this is life-changing, and I have. And I could literally teach you for 2 hours nonstop on Pareto and priorities. I not only grew and advanced in my ability to prioritize my life well as far as what I did. I talk about the 3 R's, and I again help people line this up. This is just material that, as I've grown and developed, I personally created. But you got to line yourself up with the 3 R's. What's required of me, what gives me the greatest return, and what gives me my greatest reward. Wow. Now, when you can line those 3 R's up like you kind of line the stars up, you have to understand you're going to get a huge return. When what you have to do, requirement, is what you're good at, return, and it's what you love, reward, you can't be stopped. Don't miss that. You can't be stopped. Literally, I'm 74 and I have lived the 3 R's. I love the 3 R's. It's what I do. It's who I am. I stay in that world all the time. And it's such an enjoyable journey, such a great experience of just helping people, because what I have to do, which is like lessons today, teaching you on leadership, and what gives me the great return is knowing that, oh my gosh, because I'm spending time with you. Can you stop for a minute? Can you imagine the return that you're going to get out of our time together?
If you have the privilege of leading a team or an organization, and you would love help with enhancing your leadership culture, maybe even developing some of your high potential leaders, just follow the link on the screen, and we would love to connect with you.
For over 40 years, one of my growth practices that I've had, and in fact, I would encourage you to have it too, is every month I have what I call a learning lunch. And a learning lunch is just simple, where I just take somebody to lunch, buy their lunch, somebody hopefully that's bigger, better, faster, smarter than me, that I can learn from. And in fact, I don't even have lunch. I just sit with my legal pad, and I've got 7 questions I want to ask them. And they eat, and I ask them questions, and I learn from them. This has been one of the growth practices I've had for many years that has been just incredible in helping me to develop myself and reach my potential. It'll help you. So I would encourage you to have learning lunches. Anyway, I ask 7 questions when I sit down with them, and one of the 7 questions is, tell me about the most important lesson you've ever learned in your life. And I love that question, and for 40 years I've asked that question, and I get all kind of lessons that I learn from them, but there's one thing, and this is what I don't want you to miss. There's one thing that they all have in common, and this is huge. I've asked this question hundreds of times, and every time when I ask for their most important life lesson, they give me a lesson they've learned out of a very difficult time in their life. I promise you, they were in a valley. They were handed some lemons. It was a dark time, and they say, but let me tell you what I learned in that very difficult time. And the reason I'm saying this to you now is the fact that I think there's a tendency for us that during difficult times to want to get rid of them as fast as you can. Oh, how long is this going to last? And when can I get rid of this? Instead of what can I learn from this? How can I become a better person because of that? What lesson is there that I could learn from this? So I just want to say that one of the lessons I want you to learn right now is the fact that honestly, your greatest growth can come right out of this period. Your greatest development can come out of this. Right. The seeds of your success in your business can come right out of this very difficult time. And so I want to encourage you to maximize this dark time, because there are some lessons in it for you. Learn them, embrace them, live them. Now, I say that because during difficult times, we have fear, which is a negative emotion, but I hope that we also have belief or faith, which is a positive emotion. In other words, inside of us during crisis, both emotions are kind of going a little wild on us. You know what I'm saying? Now here's what I want you to understand. You can't get rid of your fears. I've got fears. I've got a lot of questions about this crisis. But what you do is focus on your belief and your faith, okay? Because if you focus on the positive, it gets bigger. And what that does is that helps you to get bigger and better. And if you ignore the fear, it's not that it goes away, but it reduces itself. So what I tell you is put your, feed your faith. And feed your faith by focusing on your faith. What you focus on expands. So put your faith, your belief, put that in front of you, and put your fear behind you. And as you travel, as you focus on your belief, it gets bigger, and the stuff that's behind you, it just gets smaller. So it's not that you get rid of the bad and only keep the good and the emotions. No. We got them both. They're always going to be both inside of you. So don't act like that you don't have fear. When people tell me they don't have any fear, I look at them and say, you're delusional, drunk, or on drugs. Something's wrong with you, because we all have fears. It's okay. It's okay. Just focus on your belief and faith, the positive, and ignore that fear. And it gets smaller and your faith gets bigger. Make lemonade. You see, On my desk as I talk to you today, I've got a bowl of lemons. And yep, you better believe it. I'm just squeezing this lemon. I'm making lemon juice and transferring over here to my glass. And what I tell leaders is this, because this is very true. Every day, if you're leading, you get a lemon. You just do, because there are no 2 good consecutive days in any leader's life, because you deal with people, you deal with problems, you deal with issues. The only problems you deal with are the hard problems when you're a leader. So every day you're handed a lemon, and you take that lemon and you squeeze that little baby, put it over there, and you make you a glass of lemonade. But during a crisis, you get a bowl of lemonades every day. I mean, it rains lemons on you. And so here's the good news. You get more than a glass of lemonade. If you take all those lemons that you get right now into lemonade, you got a pitcher or shoot, you could maybe start a lemonade business. Here's what I'm saying. The more lemonades you get, the better positioned you are to take something that isn't what you want and turn it into something that just is delicious and that you do want. I don't want you to miss this, because you see, when we look at opportunity doesn't come before you or me with like Las Vegas neon flashing lights saying, opportunity, 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 come and get opportunity, opportunity. No. You see, all opportunity is hidden by adversity. You don't see the opportunity, you see the problem. But inside of the problem is where the opportunity is. And because you're now out of your comfort zone and you're dealing with adversity, you're learning to be more creative. You've just developed and found out what your new products are. You're getting all these training tools. This is a great time for you to build your business. But remember, when you see that problem, here's what I want you to do. You got to understand, you've got to get through the problem to get to the opportunity. It's there. You're going to take the lemons that life hands you. You're going to squeeze those babies, pour them into this glass, and you're going to drink some delicious lemonade. Live between the lines. And what I basically say is, on the right, as I walk my journey, on the right is success and on the left is failure. And there are sometimes I'm very successful, so I'm over on the right side of the road, and there's sometimes when I mess up and I'm over there in the failure ditch. And when I'm in the failure ditch and I'm not doing well and I've had a bad day, here's what I know. I'm not as bad as I look right now. I'm better than this, okay? I'm in the ditch, but I want to raise my hand and say, I'm bad, but I'm not that bad, okay? I don't really belong in the ditch, but when I get over on the success side, I want to tell people I'm not as good as they think I am either. And I'm not. I really live between the lines. And I just kind of want to be there, because you see, if I just want to live over on the success line, I'll never learn from people, because successful people become arrogant and prideful. And if I live in the failure ditch, my self-image will be so low, I'll never believe in myself enough to do it. But just walk between the lines. That's what that chapter is all about. It's just about character. It's all about integrity. It's about being bigger. It's about being better on the inside than you're on the outside. That's what it's about. This hand is my leadership lid. This is how well John Maxwell leads at this moment. These are my leadership skills. Now, what I want you to know is that if this is my leadership lid, this is how well I lead right now, and it's a 5, it's average from a 1 to a 10, then my business, in this case, thriving, my business is going to come under that lid, but it cannot rise any higher. There's a lid on my potential, and that lid is my leadership. So if my leadership lid is a 5, then in Thrive in my business, I'm going to be about a 4. That's going to be the extent of it. And I know that to be a fact because everything rises and falls on leadership, and history teaches us that whether it's in business, religion, education, government, that the people can go no further than what the leader has the ability to lead them. And so that's why I'm so passionate about teaching leadership. The reason I've been doing it for 50 years now is because I know that everything rises and falls on leadership. And even what I know better and more is the fact that you can become a better leader. In other words, you can take your leadership lid, which in this illustration is a 5, which means my business is a 4, and you can raise it. You can go from a 5 to a 6 to a 7. Well, after time and a lot of work and intentionality, maybe you can get to an 8. Now, you see, the moment I lift my lid in leadership, I now have room to grow my business. And it can go from a 4 to 5 to 6 to 7. And so people ask me all the time, John, how do I really grow my business and my company? I say, well, grow your leaders. When you grow your leaders, they'll grow your business. That's the way it works. And that's a very important law. And when we talk about personal growth and developing ourselves, again, I just would, as your friend, challenge you, make a real intentional commitment to develop your leadership. It's just so essential to your success in life. You and I don't develop as leaders quickly. We don't do it after one lecture like this, or we don't do it after we've read one book or gone to one leadership seminar. It's more than an event. It's a process. And if we want to be really committed to develop our leadership skills and raise that lid, again, what we really want to do is we want to be committed to consistency in intentionally developing ourselves as leaders. That's been my commitment, and that's my commitment to you to help you to really understand this entire process, because it doesn't happen quickly. So when people come and they hear me speak maybe, and they pick up 3 or 4 of my books and they walk out of the conference, and it's kind of like, I am a leader. Well, no, you're just a person that has some leadership books. It's going to take some time, and it's okay. Shortcuts don't pay off in the long run. And when you and I have the big picture, and when we see more than others see, and when we see before others see, and that's a common characteristic of leaders, then we'll understand and be willing to go through this process. You see, the question is now not how fast can I become a leader, but it's really how far can I go, and that farness is all about consistency and process. And I say that because what I'm about to teach you about personal growth is a continual journey. It's not, again, the points that I'm going to give you, and you write them down, you think about them, and boom, you just grow personally. Too many times we want magic, and what we really need to do is just be committed to the process. If you sit down with me at lunch and you say, John, I really want to have a good future. What advice would you give me about my good future? I would just say to you that the only guarantee that you and I have that tomorrow is going to get better than today is that we are growing today. My growth today determines my success tomorrow. You see, every day you and I are either preparing or repairing. You see, if we're preparing every day, we're committed to this process and we're setting up tomorrow for success. If we're repairing, basically what that means is that we haven't continually on a consistent basis growing. And so we're having to go back and fix yesterday all the time. So we're either forward moving by preparing or having to kind of oops and go back and repair. And this process of growth that I'm going to share with you now just will allow you to prepare and make sure that your future is bright. You see, my life changed when I was in my 20s, when I had a mentor over breakfast share with me that if I was going to grow, it was going to have to be intentional. He said, growth isn't automatic, John. You've got to grow on purpose. And I thought, wow, I don't even have a plan for growth, and I need to find one, and then I need to be purposeful in it, and I need to continually grow. And that set me up on a journey, a growth journey, that at the age of 74, I'm still on, and I'm still enjoying, and I'm still learning, I'm still expanding, I'm still growing, I'm still developing, I'm still asking questions, I'm still curious. And I want that for you, and it can be for you. But there is a process, and when I realized that personal growth was going to be an intentional commitment that I made on a daily basis the rest of my life, I began to understand that there are growth environments that add to that, and there are some places that would detract from it. You see, I belong, for example, to an organization that didn't have a growth mindset. Okay. I had a lot of desire to develop myself, but I wasn't around people who had any desire to develop themselves. In fact, when Kurt Kampmeyer told me that growth was not automatic and you had to have a plan for personal growth, I know in the next 6 months I went to 300 people around me, my friends, and I asked them what their plan for growth was, and not one of them had a plan for growth. And they were like me. I think they just assumed that if they just kind of went to work every day, that it was kind of automatic that they would just get better, which is not true. And it was that time of asking questions and I came to a conclusion that I wasn't in a growth environment. Now, what am I going to do? Because I want to be in a growth environment. I want to be around people that are going to enhance this passion I have to develop myself. But I wasn't fortunate to be in that environment. And in my 20s, I sat down and I spent a period of time, a good period of time, just asking myself, what does a growth environment look like to me? What do I want in a growth environment? A growth environment always includes people that are bigger, better, faster, smarter, more advanced than who you are. Here is what I've discovered. If you're at the head of the class, you're in the wrong class. And every time I find myself kind of like in the head of the class, I immediately go look for another class because, when you're kind of like number one, instead of growing and learning, you're kind of teaching and showing them and helping other people get successful. And so I've realized that what I need around me are people that really truly are bigger, better, faster, smarter than me. And I intentionally seek them out. I intentionally put myself in experiences where I'm not the head of the class. For example, every month, I've done this for 40 years, I have what I call learning lunches. And learning lunches are just simply where I take somebody out to eat. I buy their lunch. I don't even eat. But as they eat, I have a list of 7 questions that I ask them. And I learn. I sit on the other side of the table and I take notes. And it's this exercise, this practice has been just absolutely essential and catalytic to the growth that I've had in my life. I seldom finish a learning lunch where I didn't learn something. In fact, that's why I call it a learning lunch. I'm going to lunch, but the food I'm going to have is knowledge and drawing from somebody's experiences that really have been where I haven't been and they've done what I haven't done and they can help me. I had a wonderful friend, and one night we were having dinner and we were discussing books because he'd read a lot of my books, and so we'd go out and he'd like to ask questions. And so we we're having this wonderful discussion, and he said, John, I know you love learning lunches. This happened to be a learning dinner. Only the role was reversed. He was asking questions in this setting, and he said, and so we were going through some things, and he said, John, he said, I've had a practice for about 20 years that has really helped me. And so I leaned in, and I said, what is it? And he said, I like to take out to lunch with me, or I like to have an appointment with somebody that's about 10 years older than me. And he said, I find that's just about the right number, 10 years. And I ask him one question, that is, help me know what's ahead of me for the next 10 years. He said, if I get somebody my age, they don't have that experience yet. If I get somebody, he said, like 20 years older than me, he said, most of the time they've not maybe forgotten, but at least it's not pressing on them to share with me what I need to know. But he said 10 years is just about the right age difference and experience difference. And I say, okay, talk to me. What's ahead of me? And he said, I just learned so much because I'm gleaning from their experience. Well, that's kind of what I'm talking about. Who's ahead of you? Who do you need to have lunch with this month? And I want you to be intentional with it. I keep a list of names of people, and I just make sure that every month I have a learning lunch. And I would say that in my personal growth environment, and as far as a tool or resource for me, I would say there's nothing better than putting myself in this growth environment of making sure that others are ahead of me.
Wow. If you're like me, you watch a video like that from Maxwell Leadership and you just get inspired. I love how it's so practical. It just makes a lot of sense. But here's the challenge. We have to commit to each other. We have to commit to change, both in our personal lives and also our professional lives. Looking for more information about the Maxwell Leadership Certified Team? Follow the link below to learn more. We can't wait to hear from you and add value to your lives.